Good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of my colleagues at the National Board, I want to thank you for joining us at these association assemblies. And I mostly want to thank you for everything that you do in your communities and in your Ys. Before I begin my remarks, I also want to thank the 2019 National Association Assemblies Steering Committee for all the great work that they did in planning this meeting. Could all of you please stand up so we can recognize you? Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much for your leadership. So the video that we just saw contained the highlights from the most recent Association Assemblies meeting that was held in Chicago in May of 2018. How many of you were in attendance? I'm just kind of curious, so quite a few of you. I'm sure that video was familiar to you. If you weren't at that meeting, we'll expand on many of the themes from last year over the next 4 days here in Anaheim. But for now, I'm going to spend about the next 15 minutes talking about the future of the Y and the future of our movement. And then I'm going to wrap up my comments with 3 concrete actions that each of you can take when you return to your Ys. And then after my comments, I'll be joined by Kevin Washington, and he and I will do a Q&A with all of you. So think about the questions you want to ask us. So last year's Association Assemblies concluded with the announcement of the Y's commitment to America, which is developing a new generation of change makers who will create the communities that we all want to live in. These change makers are young people up to age 24. And our belief is that if the Y can deepen and broaden our impact with them and give them the space and the support that they need to advance their ideas, they will transform communities by bridging social divides, giving back, and continuing to strengthen the places where we all live. So you might be wondering, why this commitment and why now? One reason is because we know great social movements are led by young people. Here's one example. In 1844, a 22-year-old was appalled by the terrible working conditions in London for young working men. So he organized and created a safe space for these workers. This man's name was George Williams, and the place that he created was the YMCA. If you want to strengthen communities and drive positive change, you need young people to be active and in the lead. History has proven this over and over again. And as we heard on the video from Bob Johansson, this current generation of young people has the potential for being the greatest force for good in our nation's history, if they have hope. The Y's commitment to America is our commitment to ensure young people have hope. We also heard from, on the video from Dr. James Johnson, that our country is in the midst of an unprecedented demographic transformation. And it is a fact. The communities we serve are changing rapidly across all dimensions of diversity. The commitment to America calls on us to engage young people, no matter who they are, where they come from, and serve the entire community. This is a mission imperative, but it's also a business imperative. Because in the future, the communities we'll serve won't look like the ones that we serve today. And as an organization, we must be flexible, ever-changing, is to remain active and trusted and relevant. And remaining relevant has never been more difficult. The world used to be a simpler place. That is true. Today, every organization, whether it's a not-for-profit or a for-profit, is facing new and daunting challenges. And I think that megatrends are the source of many of these challenges. These are global, sustained macro forces that impact the economy, culture, even our personal lives. Trends such as urbanization, the demographic shifts that I just talked about, technology, changes in family structures, disruption in healthcare, and many, many others. We don't control these trends. We may not even like them. but they absolutely impact each of us every day and every organization as well, including the why. As someone who has had the opportunity to lead large multinational organizations for much of my career, there's one thing I absolutely know about megatrends. They are neither an opportunity nor a threat. Megatrends are both. It's our jobs to understand what is changing around us and how do we continue to strategically shape and evolve our organization to ensure that the why stays relevant. You know, early in my career, I had a mentor who used to say, organizations never stay the same. They're either growing or they're shrinking. And it is true. And the key to growing an organization is staying relevant. And the key to staying relevant is adapting to the changing world around you. So you might be wondering at the why, how are we doing? And I think the answer is a little bit mixed. On one hand, we have measurably changed perceptions of the why. Haley Berlant, who you saw in the video, the branding expert, she's worked with the why for more than a decade. And last year, she told us that thanks to brand revitalization and the work that we have done together to promote and position our organization, the public increasingly sees the why as an organization that makes a meaningful difference in our communities. Brand matters. You know, let's just face it. If we change the name of the YMCA to say, Matt's Community Center, we could all step aside and watch our organization wither away. Because brand is a promise, it's an expectation. And continuing to strengthen the Y's brand is a business imperative that is more important in today's environment than it has ever been. Y associations affirmed this a few months ago by voting to modify the nationwide campaign and move ahead with the Y Collective marketing initiative. And this was an important decision in our movement. The nationwide campaign was a first-of-its-kind effort for the Y, but we now have the opportunity to build on what we've learned. And as our most valuable asset, the Y brand needs constant management and strengthening. Another positive is that we are addressing the need for greater flexibility across our movement through our new service delivery network that we've been implementing over the past year. This network shifts resources and decision-making and expertise away from the national office and puts it closer to your Ys and the communities that you serve. This approach gives you more control and gives you more agility to respond, to respond to the unique needs of your community and across your state. So I think we're making progress on a number of fronts to strengthen our relevancy as a movement. But we still have work to do in other areas. For instance, you heard what I said on the video about young people in the Y. In 2004, since 2004, we have lost more than 2 million members under the age of 18. And the simple data would tell us that we're less relevant to youth than we were 15 years ago. We know that young people are the future of our movement. They are the next generation of staff, volunteer leaders, donors, partners, and members. And we're losing them at an alarming rate. So to stay relevant, we have to face all the facts of where we're at as a movement, and then act with courage, vision, and urgency. To help support the work in this area, as you leave today, you will receive a demographic report for your association based on a 12-minute drive radius. And this report is based on 2019 data and will help you understand who's living in the communities, your communities, and where the trends are moving. Then at General Assembly, at the YUSA booth, you'll be able to view this information on interactive maps and zoom down to a block level to create and print reports that identify community needs in our 3 areas of impact: healthy living, youth development, and social responsibility. You'll also be able to view and print data from 2010 and projections for 2024, so you can see the longer trend lines and the expected makeup of your communities 4 years from now. So matching all of this data with your individual membership data should give you a clear picture of whom you're reaching, whom you're not, and where the opportunities exist for your individual Ys. This step is essential to engage the full community, to reach beyond the walls of our facilities, develop relationships with populations who aren't coming to us today, and re-engage those youth that we've lost. Only by extending our reach into communities that we serve, and only by engaging more young people, can we sustain the Y for the long term. The Commitment to America supports our imperative to ensure our organization remains relevant. The execution of all this is going to be unique to each Y. There's not going to be a declaration from the national office for specific programs. We know that that's not the way to do it. Rather, YUSA is going to provide support and resources through our service delivery network, and each Y will determine your own work because you know what's best for your communities, and you know what your community needs the most. Now I'd like to turn to the most important work that all of us do, and that is to provide a safe environment for our kids in our care. This is a non-negotiable for all of us. We must preserve our reputation as a safe place for kids if we want to remain relevant in the communities and increase our impact. And we know when it comes to child safety, the environment that we're operating in is changing rapidly, and that's for a few reasons. The first, there is much more attention paid to child sexual abuse today than ever before. And the truth is, that's a huge positive, because child abuse is a serious social issue in our country. But this attention also increases scrutiny on youth-serving organizations such as the Y. The second reason is that if you get Google alerts, you know that there have been incidences in YMCAs. And word travels fast and far in this era of social media. And an incident in one Y presents a reputational risk for our entire movement. And finally, we are seeing an uptick of historical allegations, those dating back 20 years or more. And this can be attributed to people feeling much more comfortable and safe talking about abuse. And it can also be attributed to the very public cases involving other high-profile organizations and the changing laws that are happening, removing the statute of limitations. So it's a very different environment that we're working in the Y, and it's a different environment for all youth-serving organizations than it was even a few years ago. The National Board firmly believes we are doing the right things in the Y, from our new membership qualification standards focused on child safety and aquatic safety to our partnership with Presidium, Redwoods, and the Background Investigation Bureau, to the leadership provided by so many in our movement, particularly the Guardians for Child Protection. The Guardians are led by about 20 CEOs, YMCA CEOs, who are making a concerted effort to raise awareness of abuse prevention among Y families, members, and our communities. And now the Guardians are taking a step further in their leadership. YUSA has contracted with the Guardians to have them be a service delivery partner in our new network. This means they will be available to help other Ys that are working to address gaps in their policies or their procedures and protocols and operationalize the best practices for abuse prevention. This is a resource for all of you. I know we have a few Guardian CEOs in the audience today. Could you please stand? Let's give them a round of applause. They are providing leadership on a very, very critical issue. Thank you. So we are doing the right things. We have made child safety part of our culture at the Y, but we can't get complacent. We need to remain vigilant every day in every Y with every child. And I want to thank all of you because I know that you think about this a lot, and I want to thank each of you for the work that you do to keep our Ys safe. Thank you. So in closing, I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks that there were 3 concrete actions that I was going to ask all of you to take back to your Ys. And each of these are 3 board-level conversations that I would like you to have. I know the next 4 days are going to provide even deeper context for you to have these conversations. The first is about how your Y can integrate our commitment to America into your strategic plan in a meaningful way. Again, YUSA is not going to be prescriptive on how you support the commitment to America. As we know, it's going to show up differently in each community. But creating change and assuring our relevance on a national scale means that we want each Y to do your part. The second conversation is about your communities and how they're going to change over the next 5 to 10 years, and what your Y needs to do to remain relevant. The demographic data that we're providing and what you learn at General Assembly can help inform this conversation with your board. And the focus of the third conversation should be assuring that the Y has the right policies and procedures in place, making use of all the resources through Presidium and our other partners to keep our members, particularly our youth, safe. If you're a board member, this is consistent with your responsibility as your association's fiduciary. It's our responsibilities to make sure that we're asking tough questions and really ensuring that we're thinking through our key areas of risk. So with these 3 requests, I'm really mindful of the fact that all of you have a strategic planning process where you ask similar questions. But the next 4 days should provide you with new information. And I hope that you agree with me that it's a good practice to refine and strengthen your strategy whenever you're presented information that affects your organization. These 3 steps are a lot of work, and I thank you in advance for doing this. But it's important for us just to remember for a minute. Look around this room for a moment. Collectively, as board members, as executives, we are accountable for the future of this organization. It is us. There is nobody else who is paying attention to this. It's our responsibility. And I believe our future will be brighter when we deepen our engagement with youth through our commitment to America. When we urgently evolve our organizations to ensure relevance in the communities that we serve. And with a very sharp eye, when we strengthen our policies and procedures to guarantee abuse never happens in any Y. All of this work really energizes me. I am so excited about the future of our organization and proud of the just immeasurable positive impact that the Y has on each of our communities and our country. There's nothing like the Y, and all of this happens because of the work that you do. The work that you do in your individual Ys with individual members. I thank you so much for everything you contribute to the Y in your communities. Thank you very much.